is older, he will not depart from it. Okay. So,
Yes, sir.
so that's kind of that's a behavioral approach. In other words, if you train a child, eventually that child will, continue that behavior. So the parent is the one who is training the child. So what I want to then now introduce to you is this guy. See him there? John B. Watson.
Yes,
and
sir.
he is considered to be the father of behaviorism. So if you see a question that says, for example, who is considered to be the father of behaviorism, you're going to tell me. And if I have choices like Freud, I have choices like Marx, or choices like Skinner, or a lot of different choices. The one you want to look for is John B. Watson. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, or I may reverse it and I may ask you, what was John B. Watson known as? What was he famous for? And then you would say what?
Behaviorism.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I want you to remember that, okay? And
Yes, sir.
one of his famous statement is that, give me a dozen healthy infants, well-formed, and my own specified world to bring them up in, and I'll guarantee to take anyone at random and train him to become any type of specialist I might select. That's exactly what Proverbs is saying, isn't it? In other words, you can take me a child and I can make him a doctor, a lawyer, an artist, whatever I choose to do. If I'm the only influence in that child's life, I could make that child, turn that child into whatever I choose for him to be, because I'm going to control the environment and therefore train him. That's the behavioral approach.
Yes, sir. But
yes, go ahead.
I don't really agree with that 100%, because it's like there will still be exceptions. Like,
okay.
I have said that to Brother Kido when he was, using that verse in raising godly children. But the truth is, we will notice that there are some really good people in the Bible, and they would have tried their best to raise children in the ways that they have lived. But still, the child go to be co-op of something, Now, again, if I'm taking another example, there are certain things that you cannot make a man. Some people, if you'd like to, like, if we are speaking about surgery, you may want the person to be, I don't know how they call those that are like doing surgery stuff. But if you want the person to become that, and naturally the person is afraid of maybe cutting people's skin or afraid of blood, all of that, the person will not go to be that. If you want the person to be like being a part of the army, if they are not, if they don't have the ability to go through the process, like the training and all of that, eventually they will not be, they will not become that. Okay. So that is why I'm saying I don't really agree with it 100%, because there's at times it's like I agree with other theories that says, like essence precede existence, which is not again 100% right, because they all have their their fault, that somewhere they fell. But you will understand that sometimes we say, well, this man was born to be an artist, he has that in his blood and all of that. but maybe another man may be trying his best to become an artist, but he just can't.
Okay, I mean, there are some truth to what you said, and I'll pick the, let me look at both of them. Okay, one is what I hear you saying, that you can train a child not to steal. However, that child may decide, may exercise his free will.
Yes.
To go ahead and steal.
Yes, that's clear. That's even
So
clearer.
ultimately, so that's one point that you're making. However,
Yes.
when you say that in order for a person to be for example, a surgeon, that he may not be able to stand blood and therefore he can't be, you may be wrong on that, because if you expose him to blood eventually and take the time to do it, he will overcome that phobia. He will overcome that issue. Follow? So if you say,
okay,
right, so if you say that a person may not be fit for the military or do well because maybe their body style or what have you, that person can be trained to build strong muscles. They can be trained over a long period of time to become a good soldier. The issue that you're raising is the freedom, the free will, whether the person are going to, at some point they will make up their own choice. That's what you were talking about the Bible, how some children turn out bad and some turn out good, because ultimately when they get to a certain age, remember we study Erickson, when we talk about the identity crisis, when a child begins to become an adult, and they begin to make their own choice, begin to select their own values. So they may grow up in a Christian home, and once they start reaching a certain age, they may begin to question whether God exists or not. But here's the issue here, though. Watson is going to argue that the reason that a child who was raised in a Christian home, believing in God, later come to not believe in God, Watson will argue that that child was exposed to something in that environment that behaviorally he got attached to or trained him to be. So it might be when he goes to college, he learned to like a particular professor who was teaching and start teaching that God doesn't exist. So again, Watson is going to argue that it is the same behavior. The child has to be exposed to that before they can accept that. Follow?
Well, I would say that he still doesn't follow the way he was trained.
No, you're correct.
While
you're
being a child.
You're correct. You're correct. And we will, one of the views that we're going to be looking at later, if we have time, is that exact view. The exact view that we have a brain and ultimately we would use our free will to make choices. So it's not just the behavior. So you are correct, but we're not there yet. We will get to that theorist who presents that view that you are presenting, okay? As a matter of fact, when we get to that theorist is going to accept some of Watson's view, but also argue that yes, that is true, but the person still holds the final answer to what he or she wants to choose to do, which you are arguing. Follow?
Yes, sir.
You are arguing the same thing, but we will get to that person. But for now, I just want you to fully understand Watson's teaching and his theory and behaviorism. And that is what he's basically arguing, is that he can take, Watson is arguing that a child comes into the world like a blank slate, and we have to write on it. Society experience right on that. So babies are not sinners, right?
No.
And then but they will adopt certain behaviors that they see in the environment that they come to like. The issue is that they have to like that behavior. They'll practice it. But sometimes children will practice without actually liking it. You know what I mean? In terms of habit. So Watson is saying that we are shaped solely by the models that are modeled to us. So it comes down to the question then. Here's another bold statement by Watson that says it reflects a belief that nurture is everything and nature and heredity counts for nothing. That is something you need to remember. I really suggest you remember that. So you may see that statement. It may go something like this. Who says that nurture is everything and nature and heredity means absolutely nothing? Who makes that statement?
Watson, John B. Watson.
Yes. In other words, Watson is simply saying it doesn't matter what your hereditary is. It doesn't matter how, you know, what nature, what you come into the world with. What's important is what the world writes on your brain. Because you're blank when you come into the world. And the world. So for example, racism, for example, a child become a racist because he was raised and socialized in a racist home. Just natural, right?
Yes.
So therefore, it's the behavior, isn't it? That the child was trained to hate Black people,
yes,
or the child was trained to hate white people.
But I would say, all right, maybe I did not hear what you said. You said nature, right?
Right, nature. It's right on the screen. See it?
Yes,
nurture
sir.
And nature.
Yes, sir.
Right.
However, I could say that it is nurture because it's something that was being taught to the child.
So that's Watson's view. That's Watson's view. That is behavior's view. In other words, a child can't come to hate, you know, another race. It has to be, you're not born that way.
Yes.
So for example, take Peter in the Bible. How did Peter come to hate people that wasn't Jewish people? Why did Peter?
Because he was accustomed to the Jewish laws.
Because he was raised that way. Not the Jewish, he was raised that way. He was socialized that way.
Yeah.
And because he was socialized that way, that's why he was the way he was. So when he was sent to Cornelius, he refused. You remember the story of Jonah, who was sent to Nineveh. And,
yes,
and what happened with him, because he will not have anything to do with that. So he was socialized that way. He was not born that way. So the environment that you grew up in, eventually is going to have an impact. So for example, and this might not be a good illustration, but we are being socialized within, say, the churches of Christ, for example. And because we were socialized that way, we will not go into on a Sunday morning to a church that has instrumental music, would we?
Oh.
To worship, we won't do that.
No.
Why? Why?
I don't feel comfortable.
Huh?
I don't feel comfortable going like this.
Well, why don't you feel comfortable?
I went sometime with my mother to a particular service where her family is going, like our church, her family is going to. Right. Grandmother and sister, all of that. And they were playing music, people dancing and all of that. I did not feel comfortable at all.
Why? Why?
Because I was not used to it.
Because you were not, you when you were growing up, that's not the church you were growing up in?
Yeah, and I felt like a stranger, like, you know, because everybody is dancing and all of that, and I'm the only one standing and looking at people. At some point, I'm asking myself, what are they thinking about me? You know?
Okay, but the issue here is though, why? Because those people were socialized in that environment, and therefore their behavior was shaped by that environment. The reason that you were uncomfortable is because your environment where you were socialized religiously is in fact foreign, different. They don't go together.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
you may argue that you are correct because of the theology or because of the doctrine, but really you have to internalize the doctrine. You know, the environment has to reinforce that in you. So that's kind of where that is. So
I have a question, sir.
Yes, yes.
What is the link between behavior and learning?
Well, I want you to hold that until we get to the next person, because the next person is going to say that Watson was wrong because we still use our brain, our will to make choices cognitively.
Okay.
Follow?
Yes, sir.
It's ultimately you can be trained a certain way. Now, there is some truth to it. For example, a lot of young men drop their pants and you can see their underwear. Well, they weren't born that way, right? They weren't born that way, but they look at their peers, they look at other people who are doing that, and then they come to like it.
Yes.
They use their cognition, their thinking. They like it, therefore they start dropping their pants as well. So it becomes a whole fad, you see? So even grown men sometimes see them dropping their pants so low. And you wonder,
Yes,
what is this about? Why do you feel like folks need to see your underwear? What's going on here? It's because of the fad. It's because of the style. And so we copy that. The same thing is true, within certain congregations. You would notice certain congregations do certain things, and certain congregation will not. Certain congregation their service probably can go all day and nobody seems to complain. Another congregation, you go over 45 minutes, people start walking out on you.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
So my question, sir, is we that are on the outside, looking on the inside, looking at persons, say for instance, having their trousers way underneath their buttocks.
Mm-hmm.
How do we determine what we use to determine that it is wrong?
That it is wrong?
Yes, sir.
Well, there are certain things. One is it, the Bible talks about appropriate dressing. Is that appropriate? For example, a woman, let's go to a woman her breast is almost falling out. Just a little piece cover, just a nipple cover. Is that wrong? And why is it wrong? Why would that be wrong?
But what would we use to say it is wrong, sir?
Well, First Peter,
we can't just look at it and say, well, that man pants is way below and it doesn't look good to you, but in that another person's eyes, it's all right. And even the example with the lady breast dropping out, how do we know that it is wrong?
Well, for example, Jesus said that there are temptations in the world, but woe unto those who cause it, right? So if that look causes you to be sexually excited, remember Jesus talks about lust. He says, if you look at a woman and you lust, that you're already guilty of committing adultery, fornication, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it depends on how the impact that it is having. So, for example, the man with his pants, with his underwear out, may not necessarily be offensive spiritually, in the sense of a sin, but it might be something that can have an impact in terms of causing young people to begin to follow that example.
Now,
So the
sir,
question, yeah, go ahead. So the question becomes, is that a role model? Is that something you'd want your all young men to follow? That kind
right.
of addressing.
Now, my concern with that, sir, it's because it doesn't make sense. Like underwear, it's called underwear, you know. It's not
Yeah,
something
exactly.
that was supposed to be seen by the eye. It's supposed to be hidden under the
Exactly.
particular clothes that you are wearing. So
I
now why
understand that.
am I seeing your thing there? I was not supposed to see it. And the
Right.
next thing is that when they build those pants, they build them with like
Belt.
stuff to put a belt in it.
Yeah,
So
right.
if they put it like it means that normally or naturally you should put a belt where it can sit tight on you so that people will not be, you know, seeing your underwear, or you
Mm,
will have to pull it up all the time with your hand. So
right.
now it goes against, you know, even wearing a pant.
Right. But for the brother who's asking the question though, remember Paul says that not all things are wrong. However, the example, how it's impacting other people becomes the issue. Remember Paul says all things are lawful, right? So in this case, the argument would be if I decide to dress that way, it is perfectly okay for me. I'm not doing it, I'm not violating anything. However,
I don't,
what
I don't,
impact is it having on the audience? How is it influencing them? So Paul is simply saying that some things may be lawful, but not everything should be practiced if it's having a negative impact on other people.
sir.
Sir,
Yes.
don't get me
Okay, go
wrong,
ahead.
you know, I'm not saying it.
No. I'm not saying you
Yeah.
embrace it. You just say how do
Oh,
we address it and how do we help
yeah,
others?
because
So I understand it.
many times as Christians, sir, because we are different from the world that we claim.
Right.
But we look at some things in the world and we point fingers at them, but
Right.
we don't have a real reason why we say that.
I agree 100%. So that's why I'm saying to you, got to go back to the example that Paul gave, that, you know, there's some things that may not be wrong in of itself. However, you have to evaluate how others are interpreting it, the impact that it's having on others, and the example that you want to set. So for example, if you're a teacher in a class and you get up in front of the students with your underwear, you know, down, your pants down and your underwear is out and your pants are falling off, my question to you would be, would that be the kind of an example you'd want to portray to that audience? And is it edifying for them? Is it encouraging? Is it something you want them to continue to model after? And the answer would be no, 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 no. Then the question becomes, why are you doing it? Sure, if you do it in your private home by yourself, sure, there's nothing wrong with it, right? Obviously.
No, in fact, you could be going, you know, without any clothes at all.
Okay.
All right, sir.
All right.
And that's
That is
fair.
true. But you wouldn't want to, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, right? However, if you step outside of that, then it's a problem. But you remember, here's another piece to share though. I just want to share this one if I forget. The reason that Adam and Eve in the garden hid from God, because they realized that they were naked. Therefore, shame was the motivating factor for them to hide themselves. So there is that built-in decency in us that will cause us just like Adam and Eve. So when we get to the point where we no longer have shame, then we may walk down the street without, like I see it all the time in Jamaica and mostly in the Caribbean, that people, like in some of the minivans, the driver would just pull over the side of the street and start urinating, and everybody's watching. What are your thoughts on that?
That's just nature, sir. That is just nature.
But is it shameful? Is it shameful? Is it Huh?
It is shameful for passerby, but the person who wants to go, it's not shameful.
No, 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 I understand that, but I'm talking about the van. Everybody in the van is watching it. The mini driver van pulls over and everybody's watching it. He's not going in the bushes to hide himself. He's right at the side of the road. There's a difference in going inside because you're thinking about others, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going inside where, sir?
Huh?
Going inside where?
Hiding yourself. Hiding yourself.
In the bushes.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? As opposed to just standing right there. Because Adam and Eve, remember, Adam and Eve hid. And the reason that they hid was a shame, right?
Yes, sir. But,
so when you no longer have shame, that's what happens.
Yes, sir. But for that example, though, I could argue that these needs sometimes. Well, I'm not saying they are unpredictable, but I've had experiences where maybe you are in class and there is a rule, for example, which says they are not giving you, permission to go use the bathroom unless there is a break time. You can go and do that. That happened to me at school where I was like, keeping it. And I didn't want to ask.
But you have an accident. That's not right, though. That's not right.
Yeah. So, when I feel like it is really going to come out, I just go to the teacher and speak. So if the person is traveling, maybe he may feel like, well, I don't want to disturb the driver to stop. So as soon as the person get out, if it was already coming out, he has to do it same
I understand. But that's an accident, though. That's an accident. That's a difference between the habit of people. You see it all the time. People just urinating inside the street. Like they don't care. Like it's their own bathroom.
All right, sir.
Yes. Sir.
I'm gonna share an instance with you, sir. While I'm on the farmer program, this guy was his first time on the farm. So he said that he wanted to impress the boss. So he's there working, and he felt like he wanted to go really bad. And by holding, when he finally got the chance to go, he passed out in the bathroom because the urine started to affect his bladder. And he has to rush to the hospital.
Wow.
So in that sense, when you feel like you want to go, you just go.
So are you advocating for being what you're in Jamaica, right?
Yes, sir. I am in Jamaica.
Just be right down in Ligony there in the public square. You know what I mean? Standing next to the public square and doing his thing. Is that what you're saying? It wouldn't be right, wouldn't it?
No, I would find a bathroom or something.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, as a Christian, your influence is very important. And how you conduct yourself. There are some things that may not be unscriptural, maybe something that may not be unlawful, but the influence that is having on others may not be the image you want to portray.
All right.
We are the light of the world. We are the light of the world. Remember that.
Look at this one, sir. Look at this instance. We are talking about men wearing their pants underneath their whatsoever. But look at this one. We go to the beach and our shorts is very short and we don't have on a shirt.
I agree. I mean, I agree with our judgments sometimes are not the best. And that's where I think, you remember the Bible talks a lot about maturity, isn't it? And it talks a lot about how we grow up and how we influence others. And certainly our behavior can have impact on innocent children who may admire us, especially if we're a famous soccer player, a famous football player, and so on. So they may be watching us, how we dress, to copy it and try to mimic everything we do. That's a behavioral thing. And so as Christians, we have to be very careful of the image and what we are modeling to others because we are the light of the world. And so we have a responsibility to ensure that if people were to copy our lifestyle, it would be more like Jesus and not more like the world. So
All right,
that's the way I would see that.
Yeah, now to me, part of it is a question of education, because these people, they really lack education. If you knew exactly or you were educated, you wouldn't feel as that comfortable, peeing on the road whenever you feel like, or even wearing your pants down. In fact, if we are going further, I don't know if that is right, but what I've heard over the years, because these things, they have origins, and most time we need to go and look for the origin to know if we should do it or not. Same thing for people doing, having tattoos on their bodies without knowing their origin, their significations, and all of that. So what I heard is that people that are that normally in the beginning start wearing their pants like this are those who went into prison, and since they didn't allow them to have a belt, now they used to be walking like this with their pants, a little bit lower than
Right.
their hips.
Do you know why I work in a prison? So do you know why we don't allow them to have belts?
Maybe not to commit suicide.
Right, exactly. So and on the tattoo, just a little piece on that. I last year I started seeing a young girl at age 19, and she shared with me she has 3 tattoos right in her hands, and it's a special tattoo. And she explained to me what it's for, because she's a prostitute, and the guy who she works for, who controls her, put that tattoo there. 3 weeks ago, I saw another 19-year-old girl that I'm seeing, and she has the exact same tattoo. So yes. I looked at it, and then I was laughing. So she said, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Because I know what that tattoo means." And she said, "How do you know?" And then I explained to her, and she said, "Oh," and then she started laughing and put her hand in her mouth. "Oh my God, who told you?" But but she's also a prostitute, but that's the mark that she is carrying. And unfortunately, the guy is upstate, is also in jail because they committed a horrific crime. But the point is, sometimes certain behaviors have a history to it. Yes. And I think that's what you're saying. There's a history. So a lot of that came out of even a lot of the 95ers, what we call the 95ers here, which is a part of the Muslim faith. These are guys who came out of prison, who started that got started in the prison system. But a lot of young high school and middle school kids thinks it's cool, and they're copying it, but they don't know what the origin of it is, where it came from. Yeah. And so we as educators have to educate them about this.
Yes, sir. So which means if you are not a prisoner, don't do that.
Right, but sometimes you don't know the history of it, though. You just see it looks cool. It looks cool, and so you do it as a young person.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a lack of education.
Exactly, precisely. And that's what our job. Remember, Jesus, you talk about go and make disciples. We still have, and the making of disciples is in a way is helping people to shape the appropriate behavior. So there is a way in which the behavioral theory does make sense. I'm thinking of Deuteronomy chapter. Remember when in Deuteronomy Moses was telling Israel to put the things on the doorposts, put it on their forehead, put it everywhere so the children would see it. And eventually, but then you will argue with me, yes, there's a behavior component to that, but really there's a cognitive, there's a teaching. So I think you're correct that they both go together.
Yes, sir.
Because you don't want people to copy the wrong behavior. You want to educate them. And so the message on the wall that Moses was telling them to do, and all of this stuff, on their forehead and so on, was so that the eyes can see it, but also the brain interprets the meaning of it.
Yes, sir.
And so both of those things are, you don't want people to follow things blindly. And I think to a certain extent, a lot of us, even within our churches, follow things blindly. If you ask them why they do it, they have no clue.
Yes.
So,
Sir.
for example, if you ask someone why you're not using you're not using instrument of music, they can't defend it. They don't know why. They just that's just the way they. And sometimes
My pastor. Sometimes they say my pastor say.
Yes, but here's the thing, though. It might be that two things could happen. One is they don't know why they're with a group that don't use instrumental music, and number two, they like instrumental music. In other words, they're with a church that don't use it, don't use piano, don't use the music, and they don't know why. And then secondly, they like instrumental music. They like that worship at the Pentecostal church. So sooner or later, these people are going to leave the church. Sooner or later, they're going to leave because they are doing something that they don't know why. And secondly, they don't like it. Eventually, they're going to leave. So that's why a lot of women, not a lot, some women within our churches don't like the idea that women are not allowed to preach. They don't like it. They think women should be allowed, but they are part of the congregation. But sooner or later, they're going to leave. It wouldn't take much for them to leave.
Life doesn't give us that luxury, because most time we can't do what we like. We have to do what we are called to do.
Yeah, and that is true. But what I'm arguing, though, is the point that is we should take time out to make sure that people are fully taught as to what the behavior is and why they ought to practice this behavior. Because once they have that knowledge, then it becomes easy for them because now they like it, they feel it, and they know why they're doing it. That is why Jesus asked the disciples, who do men say that I am? And then he asked, who do you say that I am? It's really important that you can't just be following Jesus and don't know who he is.
Okay,
so
sir.
You can't be a member of the Church of Christ and don't understand why you're a member. You need the time. That's why you can't miss Bible class. That's why you shouldn't be cutting Bible class. You should be at every session so you can understand and educate and mature. That's the behavioral piece that comes in. But the behavior goes with the cognitive process as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's where some churches are lacking. They put out something, but it is not explained to the members so that they have a full understanding of what they are getting themselves into.
Right.
Like they teach them about baptism. Some teach that you just say the sinner's prayer. Some say you doesn't have to be baptized, and they don't know the real reason for saying that to a person. They can't defend it.
Right.
Say, well, the reason why I say that I just say the sinner's prayers is X because I say this, and this is the proof that I have why I say this.
Right. Well, a lot of people are members of the Catholic Church, but they have no clue of what the Catholic is actually teaching, and they don't care. They don't care, and they don't know what it is. So the question is, why are they there? And it's because somehow, somewhere down the line, they were programmed to do that.
Yeah, socialized that way.
Yeah, they were socialized that. They were raised as a Catholic. And so, and sometimes they don't even go to mass. They don't even practice it, but they still, wear the name that they are Catholic. So it is, again, it's important that the behavior should correspond with the teachings, what you believe, what you come to believe. That's why in revolutions, for example, Dr. Martin Luther King was willing to go to jail for what he believed. He believed that all men are created equal. And he was imprisoned for that. Actually, he was killed because of that view. but he was willing to die because he knew he was right and he believed it. And so the apostles died believing, because they believed Jesus was the Son of God, and they were willing to die and not change or give up. And they were willing to pay the full price for that belief. And so that's kind of where we need to be able to ensure that before our children leave our homes, that they fully understand the values that you have imparted to them. Not only they understand it, but you have to give them time to practice it. So if they practice it and come to believe it, they will stick with it. Yes.
Okay, so what we are saying is that overall, we are mostly the product of nurture than of nature, because everything that we become, that we are in life, is what we were shaped to be and socialized.
Exactly, precisely. And that is a fact. That is why infant baptism is wrong, because the child come into this world not as a sinner. So that's the whole idea for that. That is why you start out with your children pretty early. Make sure. I always say the most important class in the building is the one with the children. But I think most people want to teach the adults because of their own ego. But they're not gravitating to teaching the children. But that's where it really is at. It's the children's class, because that's where you're laying the foundation. By the time they get to an adult, if they don't get it, it's too late.
Yes, sir. True.
So we need to have our best teachers in the children's class.
True.
But if you notice, the preacher would want to teach the adult class, not the children's class. That's beneath him.
I understand that.
It's kind of we all have egos, right? We like to be stroked, but we have to begin that our children are our greatest assets. And that's where we need to spend our quality time, is raising and training and modeling to our children, because they are our future. And that behavioral, I agree with Watson in terms of the behavior. That's really important. So anyway, I think we've gone our time.
That's the question.
Go ahead. You were saying something. What happened?
Yes, sir. My mic was muted. Sorry. We have 4 more minutes. I think the question I asked was, what is the link between behavior and learning? So what B. Watson was saying is that our behavior come from what we learn. Is that what he's saying?
What he's saying is, let me give you an example of what his approach. Skinner, when we get to Skinner is going to be the next person that we're going to be talking about. Okay, and what Skinner's experiment is this. You put a rat in a cage. And what you do is you put a bell, a thing like a bell. So the rat goes by accident, though. And he hits this thing, hits the lever. And when he hits the lever, some food falls in. So the rat eats. The rat gets hungry, and the rat somehow over time remembers, if you do this, food will drop in. So the rat begins to practice. And so now the rat knows whenever he starts feeling hungry, the rat will automatically go to the place and hit that lever, and food will come in. Okay? So that's a reinforcement process. Then Skinner tries something else. Whenever the rat hits the lever, you shock the rat. Okay. And every time he hits it, then he gets hungry, you hit it, you shock him, and no food comes. After a while, the rat will not hit the lever, and the rat will starve and die.
All right,
follow?
Sir. Yes.
So
sir.
what Skinner, what some of the other people are saying, well, we are not rats. You follow? We're not rats. We would evaluate the situation and figure a way around this whole thing. So that's what you're trying to say, that there is the learning process, right?
Yeah, but
remember, yes.
Yeah, you just spoke about Skinner. I'm trying to just get B. Watson. Who
Yeah,
lived
but that's what
before
Watson is saying. What Watson is saying is this. Watson is saying that once the rat hits the lever, food drops in. Now the rat learns to feed. He hits every time he gets hungry. That's a behavior. That's the behaviorist thing.
Okay,
So the rat.
I'm not seeing a difference really from what he says and what Skinner says.
No,
because it's
Skinner. No,
basically the
Skinner.
same.
Skinner. I was just trying to explain to you that Skinner was the one who proved even more so Watson's point. However,
okay.
right. However, when we get to Bandura, which will be the third person we'll study, Bandura would hold your position. Bandura is saying, yes, all of this is true, but remember, we are not rats.
Okay. So,
We have free will. You follow?
All right. Yes.
Watson and Skinner are treating us as though we're rats. We can be programmed. That's
Yes,
why
we can.
people are disappointed. That's why people are disappointed when the preacher's son turns out to be bad.
Which
You
most
follow?
time happens.
Because they forget.
Most time it
that
happens, you know.
Yeah, because they forget that the preacher's son have a brain and a mind and make choices. A preacher's son is not a rat. Skinner is saying that we're all rats.
All right, sir.
But
So you
rats
got it
are
now?
smart, you know, sir.
Huh?
Rats are very smart creature, you know.
They're smart, but we're not rats. Okay. we know how to maneuver and how to manipulate and get around. For example, if there's a girl in the church that you like, you may choose to even get baptized and go to the church until you get the girl. And then you leave.
Yes, sir. But if we are comparing like the situation where they speak about the rat eating the thing and food drops, human will have the same behavior too. If they are
They
put in
do.
homes by themselves without no food, and they find only one way to get that food, they will do it.
Yeah. So that is why people steal to get their drugs, to support themselves. Why would you do that?
Yes, sir.
Why would you head down such a self-destructive? First of all, you risk going to jail, and then you become addicted to the drug. Why do you engage in it? You're like rats. You're not using your freedom of choice to make decisions. You repeat the same thing again and again. You just got out of a bad relationship and you get exactly the same one again. You're going the same route.
Negative.
Why do you do this? You go to here's an example. You go to a congregation where they're always fussing and fighting. Every time you go there, you come in from the worship, you feel sick because of the people's behavior. Why do you keep going back for 40 years?
Okay,
Why?
sir. I think I'm gonna stop it now because
Okay,
it's
that's a good thing. Please
yes,
do.
sir. All
Okay.
right.
Have
Yeah.
a great day. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.